Hi, my name is Maverick. This is my final product for the Project 1 assignment in graphic design. So I made some lovely, well, fan art to be quite honest. I made a poster for a song by one of my favorite bands. I was kind of dealing with some artist block when I made this, and wasn't really quite sure what to do. I knew that I really liked the Art Nouveau style that we talked about in our like textbook and whatnot. So I went with that. That's so far been my favorite style of art that we've covered. Um, Art Nouveau is important to graphic design for a variety of reasons. The main one being that like it definitely influenced how like line art is done. Like it relied on very heavy like stylistic choices when it comes to line art, and I think that is important, and it also kind of set a certain aesthetic for some Halloween type stuff too. Like I've noticed, so I work at Michael's, and I've noticed that at Michael's for a lot of our Halloween decorations and whatnot, it was very obviously influenced by Art Nouveau and that art style. Like mostly in a lot of the signage that we had for Halloween and in some of the decorations as well, but mostly in the signage. Um, it very much like whether it was a font or whether it was the actual imagery on the sign, it was, if you kind of knew what Art Nouveau was, it was very obviously influenced by that. Um, I used several principles of graphic design. I didn't really look at those too much before I kind of jumped into my piece because I kind of knew that, since we see a lot of these principles in everyday life without really even recognizing them, I kind of thought it would be better to just kind of jump in and see where the piece took me, and then kind of look at the like principles later on, and take a look at what I had in my piece and what kind of came naturally to me, instead of like trying to let one of those kind of dictate where the piece went. Because I already kind of had an image in my head for how I wanted the piece to turn out. So I didn't want to try to put myself in a box too much by kind of only allowing myself to use one or a few of them, or try to like push one more than the other. I just kind of wanted to see what I naturally was kind of drawn to as far as those are concerned. Um, there's definitely a lot of balance in my piece. There's, um, you know, I guess, in the definitions on the website that was linked in um, Eagle Online, balance talked about like having a large object and then in the center and kind of be the centerpiece, and then having smaller objects um, kind of off to the side, which I think is very well represented. Obviously, we have a woman right in the center, and she's like the main focal point of the piece. And then off to the side are like gravestones, and then there's a tree off to the side as well, which kind of help create a sense of balance instead of like one side of the page having more things on it than the other side, and kind of having some like variation in the sizes of the pieces, or like the sizes of the objects in the painting. With alignment, it definitely reads mostly horizontal, because you have the gravestones kind of pushing your eye across the page. But it also is vertically because there are elements that go upwards, like the tree and the woman. They encourage your eye to go upwards. Um, and there's also some repetition in like these moss bits hanging from the tree. In like the color scheme overall, like there's definitely some purples, definitely yellows and browns and grays that are repeated throughout the piece, and there are objects, you know, the gravestones, the moss, that are also repeated um, in the piece as well. Um, there's and there is a little bit of like opposites as far as like color wheel is concerned. Like the purples and the yellows, like purple and yellow are opposite on the color wheel, so that shows some contrast as well. And then with space, there's a variation of space, so it feels very natural rather than like being very specific with how things are spaced. Um, yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about this. I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. Um, I used watercolor and like Prismacolor and Micron pens um, to create what I made. Um, and I think that it definitely came out like the image in my head was definitely well translated onto the page, so I'm very happy with how this turned out. Um, so yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Um, Hope you have a nice day. Bye.